Yeah, so I think the first thing and the obvious one is like margin compression. So if your profits start to kind of go away, that just tells you there's more competition, there's more efficiencies, people are more used to it. It's not as interesting or exciting anymore. They're not trying to pay like a heavy premium. Alongside that, you typically start to see more effort for the same results, especially for the same profit. So if you're in a business where you can't make as much money off of it, and especially if you can't make as much money because it takes a lot more work because everyone's doing it or other people are doing it better or faster, that's a good sign that your business model is starting to age a little bit. When you start getting buyers shopping just on price, that can be a good sign. You know, you have like the 5 stages of awareness. So people don't even know they have a problem typically, and then they become problem aware, and then they become solution aware, and then product aware. All those phases, you have some pricing flexibility. But once they're most aware, completely aware, that's when you start to get almost commoditized. And then you're fighting for price against other people, which is a problem because everyone just assumes you're at the highest level at the lowest prices. I was on the AI Morning Club with Perry Belcher this morning, and he talked about AI tools, and he's the reason every business needs AI tools is because everyone expects you to be Amazon. No matter who you are or what you're doing, people expect you to answer that quickly, ship that quickly, keep them updated, have all the things they want in one place just because we've gotten spoiled and had that for so long. And that's a good example. Online shopping obviously is an aging business model. We've all been online shopping for a long time now and we just expect it. You know, there's nothing new about it anymore. You just ask me, do I get my groceries delivered? All of us are just like, hey, if I can't get it online and they won't bring it to me, there's something wrong. It's no longer a bonus or a benefit. And then I'd say the last piece is if there's an increasing client education burden, if it's taking more and more effort to help your clients do what they need to do and get where they need to get, and you're adding that on top of the other labor and on top of the shrinking profit margins, that's a really good sign that you need to at least pivot and maybe make a major change in your business model. I think the first thing is it a behavioral change or is it a seasonal or a potentially seasonal thing? So if you haven't been in business for at least a couple of years, sometimes this can be hard to tell because sometimes you don't know your ideal client has a budget season or they have a slow and a fast season because you just haven't been working with those clients long enough. But the big thing is, does it appear to be a behavioral shift? Are they doing something different? So if there's an interrupter in your industry and it's just people using a completely different solution or a completely different product, and that seems more interesting and engaging than yours, then that's a sign that it might be a long term problem and not just a seasonal shift. So that's when product changes, platform changes. You're not just talking about demand dips, you're talking about people doing completely different things. Think about when we switched from always sitting down to eat to fast food, you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. That hurt the restaurant business. Fine dining, when people started switching to takeout, and some people have stuck with it. That's a structural change, and restaurants have suffered. I mean, they have. Restaurants have been hurting ever since because there's still people afraid to go out in crowds and have some of those experiences. I think another thing is when your best practices don't do anything anymore. If you don't stand out for that anymore, if that doesn't get you anywhere, that's a sign that people don't care as much about what you're doing. And even if you're at the top of what you're doing, it's just maybe not something that people are interested in anymore. And then kind of going back to the interrupter, if you're seeing people around you solving the same problem, ultimately that's what we're doing in business, right? You don't want to get married to your solution. You don't want to get married to your product here. You want to get married to solving the problem for your customers and your consumers. So if you're seeing other people in your market that are starting to come up with solutions that people are adapting and are excited about and they're having a lot of success with them, that's another sign that maybe there's a structural shift in your industry or your business that you need to start paying attention to and adapting to. Yeah, so we were talking about that call this morning where he was saying everyone expects you to be Amazon. Online shopping is a mature industry at this point. So it's the days where you could have an ugly website that's confusing to use, that doesn't make it easy to put your credit card information in, that doesn't make it easy to find products. You really can't get away with that anymore unless you're super specialized. But generally speaking, in that industry, even good isn't good enough if you're not responding to people almost 24 hours a day, or at least incredibly quickly, if you're not giving them updates incredibly quickly, if you're not making it really easy for them to pay and to ship, and you're not making shipping super easy, like, you can see in that industry, like, good is not good enough. Like, you really need to be at that level. And I think because people also realize you can't be. It's not the days anymore where an Amazon is the only one that can afford websites and logistics like that. So I think you see that where it's like, okay, people understand that, so they want you to be exceptional all the time. People don't want to wait. They don't want to pay more than they have to. They want everything. I think that's where you see in mature industries. It's like everything else, like utilities. We don't have patience for when utilities mess up. Every one of us basically gets mad at our utility company all the time because it's not perfect service and the prices go up too much and our power goes off or our water goes out. And it's like, what is this? We're just entitled to this. You know what I mean? And there's a really mature industry right there. Also, you get to the point where like outcomes really matter more than effort on mature industries. So when it's a brand new industry, it's like when SEO first came out. Like you could sit here and go, I did these 10,000 things and they should work, but nobody really understood SEO well enough just to be able to go, well, all I really care about is the result I'm going to get from it. Like how many customers is that going to bring me? Now people will typically go, okay, well, what am I doing search marketing for if it's not going to directly translate to lead? They care about that outcome. They don't care so much about what technique you use or how much content you make for them or the particulars anymore. In mature industries, you get people that start to compare categories instead of specific vendors. So it's like, do I want to use this kind of tool or this kind of process? Not just do I want to use this company anymore, because people understand it better. Once you've been around a long time, get more educated on what you're offering and realize they have other options where when something's new and exciting, people are like, just give me this. We see it a lot with AI right now. People, they don't usually ask for specific AI tools or products. They're just like, hey, can AI help me do this? Is there an AI that can do that? And so I think you see that like in that newer industry where people are like, I just whatever works. Like, can I just do this? That would be great. Like, I just want somebody to help me do this one thing. 20 years from now, obviously, a totally different thing. So I think, those are the big factors for why doing good isn't good enough once your industry has been around for a while. Yeah, one of the big things, and it's a double-edged sword, is you get shorter sales cycles. So if you were a product or a service that typically took 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 12 weeks to go from lead to paying customer, and now you're doing it in half that time, that's not a bad thing from a business perspective overall, because that's great. You can close more people more quickly. But typically that's because people have become more educated and now they're just treating your product. So that's when you get that price shopping. And that's why the sales cycle is shorter, because they're really just checking one factor. They just know, okay, across the board, whoever gives me electricity is going to give me electricity. Maybe their customer service varies slightly, but what I really care about is the price. I see that a lot with car insurance now. All the car insurance commercials, the only thing they talk about usually is how much money they can save you and how quickly they can do it. None of them talk about the actual coverage or the customer service usually, and they're not competing on that as much. And you can see that if you've ever had to put an insurance claim in. The insurance companies are not fun to deal with. They've been around forever and they're commoditized now. I think you also see that when you get on with prospects and potential clients and you're getting fewer strategic questions. They seem to already understand, or at least think they understand what you're offering. When they're here just to say, okay, like, give me the details. They don't need the hand holding or the overall strategic thing, or they don't think they do at least. They think they understand it, so they're just here to find out for price. When you start getting we're talking to several people about this kind of typical conversations where it's, all right, we know there's several people that offer this. We assume you're all similar, so it probably just comes down to price, who we like, and customer service. I think when you see those things, it's the same thing with an actual product or commodity. When you want to go buy a piece of furniture, usually you're just, who's going to give me the best price, who actually has what I want, maybe do they have financing, and do they have a warranty or a TV or your food. You don't usually decide those things based on who you think has the best cashiers or the best stockers or the best packaging. It comes to a point where you're like, okay, this is basically the same wherever I go. So for me, it's just about convenience and price. So I think those are the big things you see when an industry is starting to be commoditized. And again, some of them are double-edged swords. Shorter sales cycles can be really good if you adapt to them when you're moving people through faster. But it also means you might be in a race to the bottom. The big thing for a lot of people, and especially with AI right now, is when you're optimizing broken things. A lot of companies that didn't have good systems in place already, getting to the finish line faster when what you were doing was wrong doesn't necessarily help you. So I think that's a really big thing. And you see that, and you get people where they use efficiency to hide broken things or fragility in their business or their business model. It's, oh, we got here so fast. Going back to the fast food thing, there are very few instances where people are going to tell you fast food's the best option you have from a taste and a quality perspective. So they make up for that by being really quick and usually really cheap. So I think McDonald's is the epitome of optimization. If you ever watch The Founder, all they did in the beginning with their business model was sit there and put systems out and figure out where people should stand and how they should rotate and where the pickle should be. So they went in and they're, what we care about is having the best system ever. And that was a big piece of McDonald's growing to what it was. Obviously not because they have the best or most delicious hamburger in the world. I think the other thing is when you start using that as a reason to stop learning. I think Lucent Technologies is a great example of that. They were the forefront of research and development back in the day. They were the most widely held stock in America for a while. They were really leading. And then they just sat there and optimized and got left behind. They got really good at the couple things they were doing, but they were in technology, and technology was changing, especially with phone services and office technology and the things they were working on back in the day. Think about how dramatically our phone usage has changed in the last 25 years. So I think when you're using optimization as a reason to not need to improve or learn, I think you can get yourself in some trouble with that. And then again, when it's just about movement, just about you're a regular person. A lot of people sit around all day super busy and don't get anything done. You can optimize that. You can make an AI not get anything done for you all day too. So you don't want to use speed to replace direction or processes or planning, and you have to be really careful about that. The bottom line is optimizing something that doesn't work is just going to get you to a bad place faster. So unless you're using that to iterate things that you know might not work, you just want to see if they work or not, that can get you in some trouble. You have to be really careful about making sure you have good systems before you start speeding them up and optimizing them. Yeah, so I think there's a few ways to do that. Perry Belcher, I mentioned earlier, I attend a lot of his talks. I think he's pretty smart. And he talks about how most people need two businesses, one for cash flow and one for equity growth. So it's what part of my business is creating cash flow that I can keep creating cash flow and then use that cash flow to overall turn the business into a more valuable business. Because one thing, a lot of owners don't structure for exit strategies. A lot of people, and we're seeing this now with the baby boomers that want to retire, their kids don't want their business, young people don't want their business. They might have a business making $10 million a year that's a great business, and half the time they're just shutting the doors down because they didn't build this actual saleable asset as part of that. So I think that's really the big balance there is, okay, we need to keep our cash flow coming in, but we need to use some of that to look at continuing to grow the value of the business. And part of that is in innovation. Part of that is in making sure you're the best around. But a lot of that's just in creating really good systems. You can build a really profitable plumbing business or HVAC business or home services business and not need to invest a ton of money in research and development. You know, if you're getting your people scheduled the fastest and having them show up consistently and making sure they do good work when they're there. That's how you build value in that kind of business, and that's how you keep cash flowing while you're growing it. I think the other thing is just making sure you're measuring different kinds of success metrics. So if you're only measuring cash flow or you're only measuring like valuation or owner's equity or something like that, you're going to get yourself in some trouble. You need to keep track of cash flow, profitability, growth, and check all those numbers consistently and have a good system for checking them quickly so you can identify problems through those metrics starting to be a problem. I think the other thing is just sometimes accepting short-term inefficiencies. We go through that. Digital marketing in particular, it changes so quickly. Well, right now I spent half my day, what is this open claw thing that everyone's doing? It was Moldbot and then it's Clawbot. I spent half my day just trying to set that up securely so I could test it out. But long term, it's going to be worth it because once I get it dialed in, it's a very useful, efficient tool. I think that's the thing. You have to be willing to sit there and go, okay, part of investing time and money is that we're not getting that money back as quickly and at the same rate as maybe we are in our primary service. But that's also okay because we're future proofing and we're growing when we're creating long-term assets. Same thing with investing. If you invest in things, usually if it's real estate, you have rentals, but you also do a flip here and there for quick cash. If you're in stocks, you might be doing long-term value investing, but you're also doing quick options. Business is the same way. You want to make sure you've got your cash flow, but you're also building the overall value and longevity of your business by blending those two together. So I think going back to the other thing is you can't treat them equally. So if you're saying, hey, our business is really good, and maybe the boring business is easy, so we'll go back to that. If you're a plumber and the standard plumbing stuff works, but you're okay, we're also in an area where swimming pools are becoming more prevalent, or people have a lot of propane generators and replacing propane lines is actually pretty profitable. We should start adding that in. You don't want to sit there and invest the same amount of money in both and expect the same results from both. Maybe you add this new service and it takes off a rocket. You don't want to kill your cash flowing good original business either, because maybe that's a short term thing or it's a fluke or you're just filling a market need that eventually is going to get filled. So I think that's the biggest thing is don't treat your standard business processes that are making you a lot of money and have been for a long time and your new efforts as equal. They're not equal. And I think along those lines, you don't want to mix your pricing logic or your measurements together either. They shouldn't be priced necessarily the same way or measured the same way. Your new things you might make less profit on because you're trying to grow the awareness of that side of your business. And that's okay. And I think the final piece of that too is just ownership. You still need someone to have ownership of the original business and then the ownership of the new arm. And usually that shouldn't be the same person. So if you don't have a manager or if you don't at least have a team leader that wants to take on the role of the new project or someone that can manage the original side of your business while you work on creating new things and expanding things, you're probably going to get in some trouble. So that would just be the final piece I would say is just making sure that you have clear owners of both pieces of keeping the legacy business going and growing and someone that's out there owning this new piece, whatever that is that you're trying to add in your business with measurable KPIs, measurable metrics that don't necessarily have to be exactly the ones as the original business. If you sit there and look at it as basically a separate business, which is what all these corporations do with their off branches and other projects, it makes it a lot easier to figure out when you should kill it, when you should grow it, when you should invest more things behind it. Yeah, so if your ROI is flat when you're creating efficiencies, that should tell you that there's a problem that's bigger than just making it better. I talk about these mature industries and mature products. If you look at mature industries, usually they're also the ones with the smallest margins. Utilities don't make money off margin, they make money off serving everybody. Grocery stores don't make money off huge margins, they make money off tons of volume, and then a few little side things over here that help them make more profitable. So if you're in one of these maturing industries that we're talking about, and even as you're making your systems more efficient, your delivery more efficient, dropping your costs, but you're not really getting a return on investment for it, that's probably a sign that it might be time to look more at changing it and not just improving it. Another thing is watching your team morale. If your team is sitting there going, we're probably going to be out of business in 2 years, or if they're all sitting there acting they're on useless dead projects, or they don't see anything exciting in your business anymore, pay attention to that. They're the ones that are talking to the customers. They're the ones on the streets day to day, the ones doing the work. And they're also probably ones with their ear to the ground a little bit more because they're in that network and they understand what's happening. So they will definitely know things you won't know. And it's worth paying attention to that. If you have competitors leapfrogging past you with solutions that are not the same as what you're doing, that shows you that it might not be an efficiency play and it might just be time to look at a different way of solving problems for your customers, or at least adding in that extra way. No one's saying you have to completely change or pivot your business model. If you still have some people that appreciate the old ways, there's still some people that use the yellow pages. So you don't necessarily just have to kill your business model, but you do have to understand that you're there to solve a problem. And there might be a better way to solve that problem that people are expecting. And then I think the final one is if you're sitting there going, change is too risky. We've always done it this way. If you start saying things that, and when people, especially your employees, are bringing up, hey, there's this new thing we should look at, or hey, our competitors are doing this. If you have any of those thoughts in your head, then I'd say it's pretty clear you're just delaying the change that is necessary at this point and trying to figure out ways around that. And usually efficiencies won't fix that. You're just, again, racing to the bottom at that point because you become commoditized in the aging industry. So you have to come up with a new angle or just plan on retiring really soon. Yeah, so I think the first thing I always look at is profitability versus stress. The things that don't make you money and are super annoying to do and fulfill, usually the first things you should kill. I mean, unless they're a loss leader. So I'd say the one exception is if you have something that's low margin and really frustrating, but that brings in customers that then spend the rest of their lives buying from you, you should look at that because it might be that you're differentiating yourself by doing a hard thing nobody else wants to do. And it's okay if you don't make money off your first sale. Self-liquidating offers, totally okay with that. If the lifetime value of your customer's there, that's okay. That's a worthwhile investment. You would spend money on ads or anything else, networking, would spend time to get those customers in the door anyway. So if you're flat on a first sale, but that first sale sets you up, for a lifetime of profitable, easier work with loyal customers, then I would say that's the one exception. But generally speaking, look at the things that are the most difficult, the most time consuming, the least profitable, and the worst on morale. And maybe your own as a business owner, the things you hate doing. Because if you're tired of going to your business every day, you've got to do this thing that's super annoying, that has an overall effect on your business. So I would say that's one of the first things you want to look at. Then I look at strategic relevance. What are the things that don't necessarily bring in those customers that are going to keep buying from us forever? Maybe they don't align with the other things that we're already doing. I think with restaurant menus, that's a good example. If you can make something good that you already have all the ingredients for, that's a no-brainer. There's no extra costs. And if anything, you're rotating inventory more often. And that's a great use of what you're already stocking. But if you have completely different dishes that sometimes sell, sometimes don't, or sales are down or costs are way up, then that's a different story if you can only use the ingredients for this one dish. If that one dish takes forever to cook and is annoying and you don't sell it enough and you have high waste on it, then same thing. I think the other thing to look at is, does it translate into the future? And you can't always see that, but are the things you're doing now, how many of them are likely to keep going? So we're looking at that now with websites. Websites are great. Websites are important, but I wouldn't be surprised if 5, 6, 7 years from now, websites are really easy for everyone to make on their own. We got AI tools now. You can talk to them. The prompts are getting better. The conversations are getting better, and maybe less time than that. So I'm not going to be shocked if we basically do them for free so that you have them, so that when we're doing other marketing services, they're already there. So for us, we have to look at right now, are we investing a lot in websites? No, because AI is naturally getting better at doing those and adding more features and making that easier. So we're looking more at the future and what was going to go along with those things, just in case it doesn't make sense to have that as a service anymore. So I think a lot of businesses have to look at that, especially with AI now, leveling the labor pool and going, okay, what are the things that are just grunt work and labor that probably can be replaced by an AI? Maybe it's something we optimize with AI, so our best people are magnified by 10 times, which is usually a great move for most people if you have a really good team. And then I would say really client dependency. Are your clients going to need it? Is it an option? Is it something they're likely to stick with? I would say any software industry, anything the industry I'm in now, there's no way to say that because it's easier than ever to make your own software solutions. It's easier than ever to replace low-skilled tasks. So if you're in any of those things or you're looking at any of those things, those are the first things you should probably be considering abandoning because they're probably not going to translate well into the future. The things that are going to translate well into the future are the higher skilled, the human element things. I think human interaction is going to become a premium, especially with people that are good at interacting with humans. So keeping those things and amplifying those, but especially anything with lower level coding or software or automation, you really have to start looking at, okay, how do we use those to make our other offerings better and not make those our primary services anymore? So I think clients are really great for that. If you have an idea, the nice thing in today's day and age is getting MVP, a minimum viable product, out there is faster than ever. So you have the ability to get something in front of a prospect faster than ever before, and you can test that with your client base. So if you have this idea and you're like, hey, I think our clients would like this, getting, if it's a physical thing, a prototype, I mean, with 3D printers and all these other options and all these people that can design and build things for you and make you 1, 5, 10, 50 that don't cost $20,000 anymore. Software, same thing. If you have an idea for software or service, it's much faster to get those in place these days because you have less barriers with AI and with people being amplified by AI. You can go to your customers really quickly and say, hey, interested in this? And you get a response back fast. The big thing is you don't just want the, hey, that's great. Are they actually going to use it? So that would be the big thing, is getting those beta testers out there, and are the people actually taking it and using it, or they're just, oh no, that sounds great, and then never touching it. But if you're getting your existing customers and you come up with this thing and they seem interested and they use it, that's a great sign that that's something you can keep going with. If you're in a business where you're regularly putting out new things and you've got these people that buy Apple, there's people that buy anything Apple puts out just because they identify as an early adopter of technology. If you have those people in your business, that's a great thing. If you don't have early adopters, then you go to your best customers and say, hey, we're going to offer you this very special thing before anybody else because we appreciate you. And then also because you're indicative of the clients we want more of. So we want to find out, hey, does this work for you? Your best customers make great case study partners. You can use this for a while and tell us what you think of it. Maybe you can have it for free or get some good discount if you'll just give us real feedback. And you can leverage that to create case studies that help you promote and sell your products. And case studies are really big with AI now too, if you haven't noticed. If you go to ChatGPT or Gemini or any of them and ask them for recommendations, I do a lot of this where I break it down. A lot of times the difference between who they're recommending comes down to how many case studies they have. They put a lot of credibility in case studies. So if you want to show up in AI answers, it's pretty important to have those now. And then I think the other thing is your existing client base, if it's something that they're willing to pay for, even if you sell at a heavy discount at the beginning, you can get them to help fund this experiment. So if you say, hey, we have this great idea, we're going to sell it as cheaply as possible at cost, who's interested? And 20 people raise their hand, then you're not taking a hit on testing that product. Get a bunch of feedback, get a bunch of case studies, and have a bunch of people early on that maybe even help promote your product when the time comes, when they're doing it because they already know and trust and have bought from you before. So I think that's the big thing, is your customers should play a pretty key role in validating new strategic directions, assuming you have the customer base and loyal customers that are a good fit for that. Yeah, so I think we're in a great time for that because of AI. So I think you frame it as evolution. I think right now it's, okay, we see the writing on the wall. We know that AI is revolutionizing the labor force. It's amplifying our best people, and we need to do that too. So here we are pivoting in this way because we're adapting to this world. We are seeing what's coming. We're trying to get out in front of it. This isn't that we're falling apart or anything. This is that we're trying to move forward. And I think if you do it as that evolution, and that requires a plan. So I think we had a pretty good example last week. Meta and Microsoft came out on the same day, and both of them said they'd invested the same amount of money in AI. I think it was $100 million. But Meta was, we did it because we've been doing it and we see that this is working. So we're investing $100 million in these specific things that we know are working, that are going to expand our business, and their stock went up 8%. Microsoft came out and was like, well, we're investing $100 million just because we know AI is a thing and we need to not get left behind, but we don't really have a plan for it yet. And their stock dropped 10%. So I think there's a really good example of pivoting with looking desperate versus looking you're stable and you're forward thinking and the results that happen. So if you come forward and you say, okay, we're pivoting because we have experience, because we know how to do these things, we see what's coming and we can get out in front of that better than anybody else, I think that shows a lot of strength. And if you're leading with conviction and not apology, that's another piece of it, is you don't want to come out and say, oh, we're sorry, we're doing this. You want to come out and say, hey, we're doing this for you. This is for our customers. This isn't just for our business. This is so you get better service, better prices, better products. Whatever version of that is true. And then I think the last big piece is just avoid over-explaining. We all know that when you get in, you're talking to somebody and they just won't stop explaining why they're doing something. Usually you assume they're lying or they're hiding something because there's way too many details. We see the writing on the wall. We have a lot of experience. We're taking this action because we're going to get out in front of it. We want to continue to be the best company we can for everybody. I think that's a great approach for pivoting and looking. It's a smart decision as opposed to you just think you're in trouble and you have to do something. Yeah, and so I think you see these on these investor reports like we were just talking about. So everything is changing. Okay, we invested $100 million because everything is changing. Even if you have a plan, that doesn't sound like you have a plan. Absolutes. In my industry, there's always the SEO is dead. Websites are dead. Email marketing's dead. How many times every piece of digital marketing has died and come back to life? It should be The Walking Dead at this point. And the truth is, some of those are maturing segments, but they all still work if you use the right way. You still get huge ROI on email that's cheap. You might not get every email opened, but if you've got a 40% open rate and a decent click-through rate, and it costs you 8 cents to send 1,000 emails, and you can send out a ton and send out the right way and not just be spammy so you don't get shut down, email still works. So all these different things coming out with those messages and saying, oh, or we were wrong. I think that's up there with the everything is changing. We did this thing and we made a mistake. Listen, we're all wrong. Businesses make mistakes all the time. Fail faster. That was the mantra of all the heavy business gurus these days, and it's for a reason. I mean, that goes back to the whole Edison and the 10,000 failures in the light bulb story that everyone likes to tell. But the truth is, entrepreneurs and creatives fail all the time. Artists fail all the time. Writers fail all the time. So I don't think you have to come out and say we were wrong. I think you come out and say we've learned some stuff. If you come out here and you're like, okay, we're pivoting because we learned X, Y, and Z from what we've done. But Meta did. I doubt Meta got everything right with AI. We know they didn't because they've had a lot of flops. I think so coming out or just being, hey, we've done this for the last 6 months. We learned X, Y, and Z. So we know we need to invest more here. We're using the knowledge and the skills we developed to go do that. That sounds great. And then same thing as over explaining and over talking, overuse of buzzwords or analogies or sounding or some news story. We all have our radars go off to that. So when someone tries to be salesy with us, we all instantly put up a wall. So just come out and be genuine. Don't over explain. Don't use any sky is falling language. And I think as long as you come out, you have a clear plan, and you don't over justify it, because people that justify things are usually ones that are in the wrong, I think you'll be fine. Yeah, I think the biggest piece there is just showing that it's a continuity of mission instead of changing. So when you talk about reinvention, usually that's we're not doing this anymore. I think it's perfectly fine to keep doing this as long as you still make money off of it. This segment of yours can be shrinking, but it doesn't mean you don't have customers for it and you don't make money. So I think it's perfectly fine to come out and say, we're still doing this, but we're also finding that these other solutions can really help our customers solve their problems. So we're just adding those in, because that is ultimately our mission. And that should be our mission, is to solve problems for your customers, your clients. So that aligns with what we're already doing. We're adding to that. We're becoming a better partner, supplier, whatever. We're not just killing things and changing things and coming back completely different. We're just adding and improving. I think another big thing is putting that out there as compounding your skills or adding to your skills or adding to your products instead of resetting or starting over. So, I mean, same idea there. You can go in and add to the services and add to the things that people do. It's AT&T is still around. They didn't stick to the rotary phone. They're still doing things in that industry, but they also have been part of the space race, and they also have been part of internet and cell phones, and they kept going. And that's why they didn't die, Lucid Technologies or some of these other companies. If you can be in these very mature industries and not completely change. AT&T isn't a department store these days. They're still in phone and telephony and communications. They've just seen the writing on the wall and continue to try to branch into different parts of that service and different parts of that product. And they haven't kept up as far as some of the newer companies, but they haven't disappeared either. They've definitely had several evolutions, but no real reinventions. And then when they have reinvented, they've done it by buying other companies, and nobody judges you for that. So I think looking at that as we're creating better outcomes for our clients, we're building on our skill set, we're building on the things you already trust us for, we're adding things. And it's okay if you kill some stuff, but I don't think you want to put that forward. I think sometimes it is time to kill things that aren't profitable or problematic. We talked about that before. But I think if you stick to the story of I'm improving, it's like humans, all of us are okay. I don't want to live in the past. Past me was different. I don't want to be judged for that all the time. Same thing with a company. If you present it that way, hey, we're only looking forward. We're not looking back. We're improving. We're getting better. We're doing it for you. Then I think that makes it really easy to help people see you as something that's evolving and not someone that's, oh, I got to kill the old me and start all over again. I think you have to look at that sales, all sales. In the beginning, it's emotion, it's value driven, it's benefits driven, it's not detail. You go to buy a car and you test drive the car and you get to experience the car and they're like, oh, listen to the amazing sound and how smooth the ride is and how quiet it is. They're not sitting there reading you the features list. They're not going through the contract and figuring out the exact terms and the warranty and all that, because they want you to get first. So I think the same thing with this is you share the why, you don't get into every detail. I think it's really easy to say, hey, we're moving into the future. Everyone's moving into the future. We all know this, so we're adapting or modifying or having an evolution. We need to, and we should, and we want to. But I don't think you have to lay out the exact way you're doing that necessarily. I think that can get harmful, especially because you have a lot of people out there. Think about with AI, so many companies are investing in it, but so many companies are not implementing it yet in a meaningful way. They don't understand it, which means you have a lot of people out there that are probably smarter than you. So if you give your plan, you get a lot of people that are, oh my God, I can't believe they said this. They're so dumb. And I think that's just easy to do, even if you are smart right now, because it's changing so quickly. So I think coming out and saying, hey, we're being transparent enough to say, we know we need to evolve. We're going to evolve. This is the general idea, the way we're moving. I don't think you have to get down to the nitty gritty typically. Also, for some people, especially certain clients, are going to get anxiety the minute we're making these specific changes. There's room for misinterpretation when you put it that way. And sometimes there's just not. And they're going to read it and go, oh, were you killing my service or my product and you haven't even told me yet? But you're out here talking about it. So there's just too much to risk with really getting into details. I think focusing on confidence over completeness. I think it's okay, especially in this day and age, to say, yeah, we're going to do this and we know we can figure it out, because you probably can't. We're in a time where everything is figure outable. You've got all this extra computing power and all this extra amplification of your best people. Things are more affordable. Research is more accessible. There's not much you can't do. So I think it's a time when it's okay to say, okay, we're going to go out here and we're going to get this done. Maybe we don't know exactly how to do it yet, but that's okay. We know we're going to get it done. We're moving in the right direction. And then that same idea, just reiterating it, is direction over mechanics and specifics. We know we're going this way. We know we're going to do this. We know it's important. We know it's going to benefit you. And then just end it there. I don't think you have to go much more transparent than that, unless it's your board of directors or your auditors or something. Yeah, so I think you always want to try to give optional migration paths. And we see this. There's a couple softwares we use heavily, and every once in a while they'll pop in a new feature, and I'm, how do I kill this? I don't want to have to deal with this right now. And it can be really frustrating. Phones are harder to get out of, so there's like a high barrier to removing them. So phone companies can get away with that. Your company might not be able to get away with that if your companies aren't super dependent on you. And even if you can get away with it, why be annoyed? So give them optional paths to migrate into the new things you're doing. Create some parallel offers. Again, you don't always have to kill this just because you're adding this, especially if they strategically align. A lot of times they can build off of each other. We were heavy into search marketing and SEO. We're obviously doing AEO now and working with AI search also. But there's a lot of crossover that complements there. So we're not saying you have to pick between the two. We're saying you should probably let us do both, because by the time we do one, we're 60% of the way to doing the other one anyway. So you're more likely to show up and get bigger benefits and bigger results out of it with a lower cost. I think making sure you're educating your clients all along the way. So letting them know, hey, we're working on these improvements. We've got something exciting to share with you soon. I think a lot of companies do a good job of that and frame it as something exciting, even when maybe you're not going to be excited about it when it actually happens. But I think that gives you a little bit of a better foot to stand on with your customers, instead of just being, so, hey, I want to talk to you about some changes. And then I think just respecting the risk tolerance and the needs of your clients. If you're making a drastic change to a tool they use and they have to retrain their employees, like, you might want to be ready for that. Make it easier for them to do that. If I've got 100 people that use your software and you're killing your software or completely changing it. I mean, I just had a guy, he was a painter and he was using a software that got bought up by one of the big paint companies, and they just let it die. And it's his main CRM, his main, how he does estimates, how he communicates with clients. And they just decided that they don't want to support it anymore. And he can't find one out. There's definitely better ways to handle that. So I think just those few things where it's okay, give us some options, give us some tandem offers where they can switch or not switch. Make sure you educate them as things are changing, so that when it comes time to sell, they already know what's going on and hopefully are a little excited. And then be prepared that you might have to supplement your legacy customers in these transitions and help out. You're pivoting for you, you're pivoting for them. The burden shouldn't all be on them when it comes time to having to switch. So you need to keep those things in mind. Your long-term clients will be just fine. Yeah, so I think human judgment, the processing that the human brain can still do, especially when it comes to emotion and handling things that are emotion driven. I think human interaction. We are already in a world where human interaction was dropping. More texting, more ATMs, more self-checkouts, more social media instead of actual social events. I think what you're going to start to see is that human engagement becomes a premium in every sense, where it's, if you want to talk to somebody or meet with somebody, that's going to actually be much more expensive, because they could do it so much easier if they don't have to look at you face to face. So I think individual human value or judgment and talent is probably going to become much more of a premium thing out there as you find more and more of these situations where mundane tasks, you don't need humans to do that anymore. But you do need people that are really good at engaging with people and making decisions and understanding people, and that stuff becomes more of a premium. I think ethics, AI, I think, is still a long way from understanding what humans consider ethical. I mean, we struggle with it, let's be honest. Humans can't agree half the time on what's right or wrong. We're very divided. Look at our country right now. We're so divided on so many things. I mean, I think you have to have that oversight built in there, because something tied into all of our utilities and machinery and weaponry and computers has an ethical dilemma. We could all have some big problems. So I don't think that's going away. And I think those are the places where it's okay, Humans will become more valuable because we only need the best at that point. But we need the best to do things that maybe they don't always want to do because other people don't have to do it anymore. And I think even just training the AI, I saw one of my videos a couple weeks ago, some woman posted, she's like, I'm a forklift operator and they're bringing in AI forklifts that are going to cost me my job. And I was like, that's probably true, but now you need people to train AI that runs forklifts. Now you need people to maintain AI operated forklifts, which is going to be much more specialized than a traditional forklift. You need people that can do the coding and the maintenance and monitor them in a special way because they're running 24/7. So they're going to need completely different things. So yeah, your job probably is going to go away because unfortunately, driving a forklift probably isn't as hard as it could be. But there's a whole bunch of things that are going to open up on that back end that if you get out in front of the forklift companies that are doing AI forklifts, still need someone to tell them best practices for forklifts. They still need people to come in and say, this is how to make them efficient. This is what to watch out for. I have 20 years experience. I know this. So I think that's the big thing, is that the human element, the human knowledge and judgment is going to become more premium. You have to make sure that that becomes your brand and your resume, is not just that you're reliable or an order taker. It's that you have specialized knowledge, that you stay above other people, that you've done things other people haven't, and that you can help as the future moves forward. Because the same thing as machinery. Machinery was going to place everyone's jobs too, but then it came out, you still needed people on the line to watch the machines and make sure they don't screw up, to maintain them, to fix accidents. You needed people there when machines go down, electricity goes out. I watch it. I have a 3D printer, but that thing fails sometimes and tears the whole thing apart if I'm not keeping an eye on it. So I think those are those situations where human value will continue to increase. And I think it's like every other stage. The people that were exceptional will become more exceptionally valuable. The people that just went through their jobs every day, you might have some problems. You might have to be prepared, but if there's not a lot of judgment and there's not a lot of reasoning in your job and there's no specialized skills, I would imagine we will see AI starting to replace some of those jobs in bigger numbers than we're all comfortable with. Yeah, I think there's some of that. I think we had that huge, with COVID, and technology, we had a huge hiring boom. Everybody moved online. But you also had all these inflated jobs where we were literally paying companies just to not fire people. And they kept people around longer and then they hired more than they should. So I think some of that is AI, but we talked about that McKinsey report came out and it's 7% of companies are effectively using AI right now. So I don't really think that's the case for most of those. I think most of those, it's every other layoff that's ever happened. It's a company that's falling behind. It's a company that was overhiring or mismanaged. I think things are shifting again. Technology, a lot of those tech companies, you still need coders. Again, today I was working with that one for the Open Claw or whatever it's called after the fourth name change. I still had to go back and forth with the AI 85 times just to get this thing debugged, which is super frustrating. And if I was a coder, it probably would have taken me 5 minutes. So, I mean, we're still not eliminating those things. They're still necessary. I think it's just easy to blame AI but I think it's just, I mean, there's always change. We've always had whole industries have disappeared and whole new industries have popped up. And I think that's just the way it always is. No one's making typewriters anymore, but there's a lot of people making computers. But I'd be willing to bet 20 years no one's making computers anymore either. We'll probably all be wearables. You got the meta glasses now that you wear the thing and it can read you typing. So how far are we? Or glasses or hologram or whatever. The chances that we're still going to have all these physical products are unlikely, but in return, you're going to have all these other things that have to be done. It's about adapting. We like Fallout. We're behind on the season, but why was it funny? You look at the Jetsons. I don't know if you ever saw the Jetsons, but George Jetson made $20,000 an hour for pushing a button. And I was like, I think we're getting pretty close to some of that being true. Between inflation and AI, like, we probably will have people. But the thing is, we've also always had people. My mom's husband, he had a job where he was just overnight checking computer systems. And 80% of the time, he didn't do anything. He just had to keep looking at a screen every 45 minutes to stay up all night. And that was it. But 80% of the time, he didn't actually do anything. And then 20% of the time, he had to go in and push a couple buttons or call somebody or have an intervention. But that was his job for, I don't know, 10 years. That's what it was. And that's what I'm saying. That stuff's not going away. We're still going to need AI chaperones. We're still going to need people that check all these systems and keep everything running. So I know robots are going to do some of that, but humans aren't going anywhere in this process for quite a while, both because of fear and because of need.